It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Imani Nakashemi is a nutrition consultant and clinical nutritionist working in a private practice clinic in Tampa. She is the president of Bay Area Nutrition. She is the president of Bay Area Nutrition and provides consultation to individuals as well as various pharmaceutical companies and healthcare facilities. Ms. Nakashibende is registered and certified by the American Dietetic Association and is licensed by the state of Florida. It's now my pleasure to introduce Imani, who is running up here. And we're about to end your presentation as we speak.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for this lovely, represent me very nicely. And I'm really honored and I'm pleased to be among and to be a speaker for today. And I think my lecture is ready. Almost. It took time to come from Tampa to here, I guess it goes.
Jokes.
That's all right.
Did you know some good jokes?
All right.
That's all right. How about bad jokes?
Well, I'm sorry, but my jokes, maybe it's R, rated R. So it's not going to be suited here. So actually what I'm going to talk about really in summary, because I have only half an hour, but I can take any question that you have later on. And I'm going to talk about the role of nutrition in age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. This is not part of my half an hour donor, right? All right, okay, yeah, almost. I didn't have that.
Imani, tell us where you're from. It's such a lovely name.
Oh,
What do you believe?
actually, Imani, it means different languages, different things. The most one I like, it's in Latino, mean magnets. Yes, and some other languages it mean mother, some of them means faith. So I think I love it all.
And you were born where, please?
Oh, I traveled all over. Yeah, my parents were Purdue graduates, and my dad was a scientist, and he was, he was a nuclear physicist, and he was based in Vienna. So he was a member of FAO. So kind of had a diplomatic passport, and we traveled all over. And moved here, or my parents sent me here when I was in a boarding school, high school, and studied high school, and then went to Loma Linda University in California, studied science, and then moved back to Europe and studied clinical human nutrition postgraduate in Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah, so, and I'm here back with my family in Tampa.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so am I supposed to, this is the keys? All right. Well, I was told before not to press any keys, so I can. All right. All right. That's the beginning. All right. So, where's the next one? I'm pressing. Okay. So, as you see here, vitamins. We see vitamins, bottled vitamins. It really had gained a popularity, is part of everyday life. We see it in supermarkets, health food stores. We see it in Walgreens, CVS, doctor's offices, magazine, advertisements. Now, it has really gained a great use and acceptance of use of these products, whether there are data to support it or not. Now we know that blindness related to vitamin A deficiency, it could be reversible once we give them, supplements or increase their intake of vitamin A. So we're going to look at how the supplements or the nutrition is related to AMD. Now, the prevalence of AMD, it's the leading cause of blindness in the United States, and the third cause of blindness worldwide. It affects about, people over 65 years of age, they have intermediate disease, and it's affect about 8%, while those people over 80 years of age, they have a risk of 12% of AMD. Now, and as Dr. Tolentino mentioned, that the elderly, it's the fastest growing segment of our population, fastest growing segment. And at 2000, actually estimated that we had 35 million people over the age 65, and estimated to be increased by 53% by 2020. So that's about 53 increase, okay? So that will lead us to have a burden on the healthcare, and also there will be about 8 million people at the risk of AMD. It's quite a public concern, public health concern. Now, I'm just going to say something about Brian. All right. I'm just going to mention, as you see here are the blood vessels. Now, the eye, just like anything, any organ, have high consumption of oxygen and nutrients. But I consider to be highly vascular organ because of all those blood vessels that bring the oxygen and the nutrients to the eye. And also it has high rate of oxygen consumption. So as you know, then there is going on a lot of oxidation. So a lot of oxidation, and also a lot of blood is coming with the nutrient and oxygen for this active organ. So it's very important to maintain those blood vessels healthy, okay, to maintain a healthy eye. And so we don't know exactly the cause for the AMD, but there are risk factors. Some of them are modifiable and some of them are non-modifiable. So something like that, like for example, gender is non-modifiable. However, sometimes they say at present time that will be modifiable with some surgeries. And I don't think that will affect the AMD. But it's found that, for example, among women, the AMD is higher the incidence than the men, and because they live longer. And also there are research found that the hormone estrogen play a protective role against the AMD. Race and eye color, just briefly, that increase the risk among people who are Caucasians or with light eye color. Family history, if you have a family history, that increase your incidence or risk factor by 2.5. Age, that's number one. As we age, as Dr. Tolentino says, we get oxidized, and with about third of the population over the 80 years of age have are at risk of AMD. So let's look at the modifiable, and those are quite important. The modifiable mean that you can do something about it. So it takes two things. It takes genetics, and it takes also environment to have the risk of AMD. So what are the modifiable? That's something we can do about is smoking. And briefly, no matter what, smoking is bad for you. And people who smoke, they have increased risk between 3 to 5 folds of developing AMD. Cardiovascular health, that's what I wanted to talk about. There are association between the risk factor for cardiovascular disease and AMD. So let's look at, for example, the CRP. anybody comes for the hospital and they have elevated CRP, creative protein, and that's indication of inflammation. So right away they do the EKG, they do the stress test to rule out there's any cardiovascular disease or there are strokes. But basically what is the CRP is the indicator or biomarker for inflammation. And it seems that there is association between increased the CRP and increase the risk of AMD. And I'm going to talk about how the diet or the role of diet play a role in that. Also, there is something called homocysteine. And homocysteine also level, whenever it's increased, that's indicator of inflammation or there is arteriosclerosis going on, destruction of the vessel or hardening of the vessels, blood vessels. And those are the also indicator for there is something going on with our blood vessels. And why I'm talking about the blood vessels, because it's important to maintain those blood vessels, whether they're going to the brain, whether they go to the heart, or your eye, it's important to maintain them healthy to supply that organ with the oxygen and the nutrients. And what we do with those, actually they found out when we give them a B complex, specifically folate B6 and B12, the homocysteine level decreases. And the other thing is blood pressure. Blood pressure was one of the risk factor for the cardiovascular disease, but also it's a risk factor for the AMD. People with, I just want to say something about the blood pressure. Whether it's controlled or uncontrolled, it's very important that, because sometimes I get patients in my clinic and they say, I say, do you have a, question, do you have a blood pressure or hypertension? No. When I get to speak to them, and then I'll see some medication, they are on it, and it's like, but you're on those medication. Those are to control blood pressure. Yes, but the doctor told me my blood pressure is normal, so I don't have a high blood pressure. Well, just to let you know, for the future, somebody who have blood pressure, you can control it, and you say, I am controlled blood, have controlled hypertension. Or if it's not controlled, uncontrolled, but you still have blood pressure. And the research showed that if you have controlled blood pressure, you increase your AMD by, well, actually twice. And if you are have uncontrolled high blood pressure, then you increase your risk of AMD by 3 times. And what do you do about that when it comes to the diet? One of the things, actually, they use statin they use a statin in order to control all this cardiovascular health, some of the statins, but there are controversial opinions about using this statin with the AMD. The other thing with the cardiovascular health, also elevated cholesterol level, and we know they increase the LDL and triglyceride associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, but also it seems that also increase the LDL associated with the increased risk of AMD. Body mass index, I cannot emphasize that. When Dr. Dupree said, body mass index actually is really measured the percentage of your body fat. And it really takes the height to weight. Body mass index normally is between 18.9 to 24.9. And they found out that people BMI 30 and above increase their risk of AMD. Okay? Now, in this country, in our country here, we have the obesity or overweight. Obesity now is over 66%. As you see, it's increasing. And now, what was BMI? Why it's related to the AMD? Because if you look for those people who are overweight or they have obesity, if you look at their diet, usually it's high in concentrated, nutrients, what they call it, empty calories. They don't exercise that much. If you look, they may have 1 or 2 of these things, what they call the metabolic syndrome, such as the high waist, large waist, increase the LDL, It might also decrease the HDL, high triglyceride. They may have also the other factors like diabetes type 2. So those are metabolic syndrome, and when you have a metabolic syndrome, there are things going on also wrong with their other organs. And that's why it's important to attain and maintain your weight. Nutrient status, and that's, like our mothers or grandmothers, they used to say, you are what you eat. And that is so true. Nutrient status, your status, nutritional status, depends when you eat. So if you eat poorly, basically when I say poorly, not necessarily eat less, but poorly in the sense of the quality of the food, that the diet we have, high fat content, high sugar content, not much vegetable and fruit, really eventually it will reflect on your health. And especially when it's come to the carbohydrate, and just shortly I'm going to talk about the pyramid because my time is going. One of the things also, light exposure, the eye or the macula, it filter out the blue light. And as you know, that the light does two things. It's really do the destruction by increasing the oxidative stress, and that's damaging for the eye, or they call oxidative stress and inflammation. So what causes the AMD? There are theories here, the oxidative stress and inflammation. And I'm going to go skim through that because already Dr. Tolentino talked about the oxidative stress, and basically the oxidation is part of our body, is part of our metabolism. So basically, if I'm going to eat toast, all right, I need the energy. So the toast converted to glucose, and the glucose in our body, the liver basically need to convert it to energy, all right? But in that process, there will be free radicals, things that, a free doctor that destructs cells if become in abundance. So normal metabolism, it's taken care of because our body has a reservoir of antioxidants to counteract of that. But however, we are prone to environmental factors such as stress, such as light, stress, injury, poor diet, lack of exercise, obesity, all those pollution. So all this increase your oxidative stress. So what happened? Then we have kind of imbalance. So we have here free radicals and the oxidative free radicals, but we don't have enough in our body reservoir to quench or to stop those free radicals. So therefore your body is really pushed into a state where they call it oxidative stress. And oxidative stress, that's what causes damage, because then free radical will damage this cell wall or cell membrane of our cells. And once that's happened, it's really finished. The cells is dying because then it's getting into the DNA and to the nucleus. And then if you think about cells and then tissues, and in a long term, and that's the underlying of many chronic diseases. And the second thing is, so we have the antioxidants, that's just an example here, like the zinc and the lutein, zeaxanthin, vitamin C and E. There are so many of them that we find in the nature. The inflammation, it's a normal process. If we have injury, if you make a cut, it's a good thing. We have acute inflammation in order to heal that cut. But when it comes chronic, then that's something else. Then when it comes chronic, that's when the free radical, and then we have different cells that's coming into that part and actually cause more damage than the agent itself. So sometimes the inflammation cause eventually it gets into free radicals and the same like oxidative stress. Oxidative stress in the long term also causes inflammation. So you get those kind of double whammy. So what do we do about that? It's a double whammy between oxidation and inflammation. And they are the causes of so many kind of chronic diseases. And one of them is macular degeneration and Alzheimer, chronic cardiovascular disease, strokes, rheumatoid arthritis. So what do we do with that when it comes to nutrition and diet? This is my favorite thing, the food pyramid. Now, many people think, well, that food pyramid I studied, well, as you see here, it's changed. The past few years has changed. And you see somebody is going up, meaning that they're encouraging people to exercise. And to exercise, and because especially when it comes to the AMD, Dr. Dupree mentioned that increase the exercise. As a matter of fact, increase, if you, the recommendation about 30 minutes a day of walking or brisk walking or swimming, at least 5 days a week, if we can do. And I'm not asking you to do a marathon, but any kind of activity, even dancing, that's part of it. And then you see that pyramid. This pyramid could be modified to anything. So this is for healthy people, but you can modify this for low protein. You can modify this to low carbohydrate. You can modify this to chronic kidney disease. You can modify this to be anti-inflammatory. And what macular degeneration is inflammation and oxidation. So we can modify that. So how can I modify that? Well, first of all, we have the grains. First of all, well, let's see the grains. The grains are good for you because it supplies you with the, the fiber and the B complex and the energy. Now, but there are type of the carbohydrates. There's something they call it low glycemic index and high glycemic index. And basically, just in summary, low glycemic index, usually those food they under category with the high fiber. And they found out with low glycemic, with high glycemic index, it increases when it gets to the blood, increases the blood sugar, increases the insulin, and that's pro-inflammatory. So what do we need to do is really switch it something low glycemic, more like a fiber, whole grains, grains, wild rice, whole wheat pasta, lentil, legumes, beans, all that, yam with the potato, sweet potato, oatmeal. So the next thing is the fruit and the vegetables, and even with the Mediterranean diet. This will help you even with your blood pressure. Will even help you with especially blood pressure, because with the Mediterranean diet they found out a high content of fruit and vegetable and low salt decreases your blood pressure. But that is very important. Remember that blood pressure, increase of blood, is one of the risk factors for or arteriosclerosis, and that affects the vessel of your eye, and we need them to be healthy. So it's important to control that. The other thing, the dairy product, beans and meats, and I wanted to mention actually something here, well, between here, right here, the oils, the type of the oils. And that's very important because that's where anti-inflammatory. The next slide we're going to go is increase the kind of the fat. We say that your intake of fat should be 30% of your diet. At the present time, our fat intake is about 50 to 60% of our diet, of our energy. So, first of all, we have to reduce the total fat, and it has from the good fat. The good fat is coming from omega-3 fatty acids. Now, the omega-3 fatty acids, the long-chain essential polyunsaturated fatty acids. We have two kinds. We have omega-3 fatty acid and we have omega-6 fatty acid. Now, why they are essential? Because the body cannot make those essential fatty acids, so we need to consume them through our diet. The difference between omega-3 fatty acid and omega-6 fatty acids basically is in molecular level is where the double bond is, and that makes a big difference on the function of the fat. So the double bond in the omega-3 fatty acids really make the fatty acid a more, what they call it, hydrophil, lipophil. It means that accepts the water into their molecule. So it makes the cell membrane, because they are part of the cell membrane, okay? And make the cell membrane more pliable, flexible, allow to the nutrients to, get in quite easy to communicate with the other cells. That's why it's more like than the omega-6. Omega-6 make it more let's say more rigid rather than flexible. So it's important to have those blood cell, the cell walls pliable, flexible, because why? Because if you take the vessel, the lining of the vessel, all right, if they are, let's say, they are hardened and unflexible, what's going to happen? It breaks, right? The blood vessel will break. So let's talk about the eye. So let's say if the eye vessels get hardened, what's going to happen? One of the things, the tiny ones, it will break, so it will leak. Okay, and leak the blood, and then the Dr. Talentina, Dr. Dupree, and kind of talk about that extensively. That damage the vision, and also what else happens when you damage the lining of those vessels? You're going to have platelet aggregation. You're going to have cholesterol, building of plaque, thicken the vessels, and then you end up with clots. So those clots probably go to the brain, goes stroke, goes to the heart, will stop, the arteriosclerosis. It goes to the eye, and if it's happened to be the nerve, then that will cut the supply of the oxygen and nutrients. So it does affect the eye, or the AMD. So therefore, the omega-3 fatty acid is what they call it, anti-inflammatory. And it's very important that in our diet, the type of the fat in our diet will determine the function of the cell and how healthy we are. And the problem with our diet is the ratio of omega-3 fatty acids to omega-6 fatty acids. The ratio supposed to be, well, I'm again talking about 6 to 3. The ratio is supposed to be 1 to 1, right? Or 2 to 1, or 3 to 1, maximum 4 to 1. Do you know what our diet is? What is the ratio? Anybody here? Anybody? Give me a number. No? Bingo. No? Somebody said something? All right. Actually, as I said, it's supposed to be 1 to 1 up to 4 to 1. That's 6 to 3. The ratio in our diet and what we consume, 10:30 to 1. Right? So when you have that ratio, then you can assume how our body is functioning and what is the cell membrane. That's why once we have destruction of the cell wall, then destruction, that's why we have hardening of, and non-communication between the cells. That's why they are not pliable. So that's why it's important to reverse that, because once we reverse that, then a lot of these things could be reversible, or if not, at least to prevent further damage. And there's something else called omega-9. And basically the food that has omega-9 is like olive oil. And there's always competition between the omega-9, the things coming from the oil, olive oil, and the omega-6, and the omega-6 that could be from corn, safflower, the nuts, the seeds. And there's always competition in metabolism and also in the cell wall as well. And the omega-9 very similar to the omega-3. So we need to increase the monosaturated fatty acids. Okay? And being with the fish, I just wanted to say that the EPA to DHA, we recommend something between like 1 to 3 grams a day. But very important to pay attention to that. Whatever you take supplements like that, or increase your fish intake to 2 to 3 times a week. It's very important you have to let your nutritionist or your physician know, because especially for those people who are on Coumadin or blood thinner, because there are interaction. So the rational use of those micronutrients, we did mention, if you have oxidation, you take antioxidants. If you have homocysteine high level, then you take the B vitamins, and I kind of went over this. If you have in order to, as anti-inflammatory and also anti-inflammatory and to maintain the integrity of the cell wall or cell membrane, we take omega-3 fatty acids. And we're going to see the food with lutein and zeaxanthin. The next slide is there are some study, and I'm going to go skim that quickly because somebody else going to talk about the study, like the AREDs. That's the trial. It's a 4-arm trial, and it's about 4,000 people. That's a study, and they kind of have between the placebo, the antioxidant and zinc, and they found out those people with on placebo, they have the highest risk of developing AMD, 28%, while those people the lowest with the intake of the antioxidant and zinc. So there was a reduction of 25%. And the recommendation for that is basically the beta-carotene 15 milligram, vitamin C the 500 milligram, and vitamin E 400 IU, zinc 80, and copper 2 milligram. So for those people who are diagnosed with the AMD, they get the benefits if they are intermediate or advanced AMD in one eye. And of course, there were safety outcome of that. The beta-carotene increased the risk of lung cancer among those smokers or even the ex-smokers. Also, beta-carotene increased the yellowing or bronzing of the skin. The zinc increased the hospitalization for people with the genital urinary problem, but it wasn't a big deal with none. And also, it has no effect on the cholesterol. And there's a study going on right now, the AREDs2, where it's also 4-arm clinical trial. They have a placebo, and they're trying the lutein, zeaxanthin, the carotenoids, and the omega-3 fatty acid, and they have the omega-3 fatty acid, lutein, zeaxanthin. And hopefully within 2 years we'll have the results of that. And those trials actually, they are conclusive. They are conclusive studies. I mean, they know the cause of it and they know how to prevent your eye loss with those supplements. Now, this is just a National Health Nutrition Examination Survey, and again, those are observational. And this is a survey. They found those people with the highest intake of the vegetables and fruit. Just 5 minutes? With the high consumption of fruit and vegetable, it has high intake of the vitamin A and C. They reduce their AMD by 41%. I have to go through this quickly. Let's see how many. The lutein and zeaxanthin, those are carotenoids that naturally occur in nature. They're among the 600 carotenoids, and lutein, the role in humans. So lutein, zeaxanthin, we find them in the eye, in the macula, and basically they protect from the ultraviolet and the blue, filter out the blue light that's damaging for the eye. They are antioxidants, and they are usually what we find in the nature, lutein with zeaxanthin together. And you see them in kale, spinach, all the green beans, broccoli, all the colorful things that you have here. Same thing as I said, zeaxanthin. The sources though for the lutein, it's better absorbed from the egg rather than the vegetables because of the lipids, and that's why I'm talking quickly about the bioavailability of those carotenoids. It's important to pay attention that taking the supplements or taking with the food doesn't mean that 100% you get that for your body, because a lot of things is happening, changes as we get older. One of the things is our metabolism and the GI tract, the absorption of those nutrients, the way they are within the relationship in the food, and then how it interacts. So one of the things they found out with the carotenoids, things, for example, high fiber intake. All right, decrease the absorption of lutein. Lutein, zeaxanthin, like any carotenoid, they need lipids or fat in order to be transported into our body. So they are usually, once we eat that, there are liposomes. Those liposomes are basically our carrier to take from the GI tract into the lymphatic system. So if you have like low fat intake, or because of have some diseases that some medication that you're taking, like the bile for the bile acids, like cholestyramine, or because you have a deficiency in pancreatic enzymes. So therefore, then those zeaxanthin lutein decrease the absorption. So there are a lot of studies is going on to find more about that. Actually, they did see that the kale and spinach, 1 cup, it has the most of the lutein zeaxanthin. And actually, they did kind of the survey that's dosage thing. People who have more intake of those lutein and zeaxanthin, they found out that they reduced their AMD by 43%. And it seemed like those range, the more they ate, the risk factor for the AMD also decreased. And even though, as I said, the eggs has only 0.3, however, the bioavailability of those carotenoids is better than the one with the vegetables. But again, comes the question about many people kind of eliminated the take of the eggs because of the cholesterol and the health. But in general, 3 should be safe a week. There are more of these things, but I have to cut it short because I'm not time left. So in the end here, I'm coming to the things, whether shall I take supplements or shall I take diet? Which one shall I take? Well, one of the things in the phytochemicals in the nature that we have, it's always in groups. So there's no, we cannot say any antioxidant that take is really going to overtake the diet. Because what happened, the phytochemicals work together. So let's say the vitamin C. They did a study where the vitamin C, they took an apple with 100 grams, and they found out that flavonoids and also the vitamin C, actually the effect of it, it's equal of 1500 milligrams of the supplement vitamin C. So actually in nature, those act as additively or synergistically, right? So, and as we say, the healthy diet is healthy for the healthy body, and healthy eye is in the healthy body. However, saying that supplements become very, very important in certain time, and also as we age, and because of that bioavailability, the absorption, how our gut works, and also the oxidative stresses increase. As we get older, we get, we get rusted, and we need more of those reservoirs. Remember about reservoir of antioxidants in our body. I have to cross to this. So in summary, we can predict by, how can you predict for AMD, is knowing your risk factors for your AMD. And we mentioned about the modifiable risk factors, so we need to know that, and also the physicians or the doctor mentioned also the genetic testing. How to prevent is routine eye exam, manage your risk factors for other conditions, such as high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, your diabetes and all that, and have a better monitoring and better management of your chronic diseases. Eat diet rich in vegetables and fruits. Increase your intake of your omega-3 fatty acid from the fish, and maintain your healthy weight. So that's very important, the BMI we talked about. In order to preserve your vision, in top of what we mentioned, if you are at intermediate AMD or advanced AMD of one of our eye, you must take also the supplement that we mentioned earlier. I close with this. Like that, so they always use eye not to see, but also the poets and the artists also all